What up everyone, Shibuli here, and if you're a fan of Pokemon, you're probably a fan of Eevee. Eevee is either the second or third mascot of Pokemon besides Pikachu and Charizard, so everyone knows of Eevee. It's an adorable little fox dog thing, and it evolves. That's its thing. It evolves into 8 different Pokemon, because that's its gimmick. It evolves into a Pokemon of every type, except it doesn't, actually, because it's missing a ton of types. So, to be just like every other YouTuber and be very unoriginal doing something so many other content creators have done, I will be filling in those gaps, making an evolution for all of the types that don't currently have one. Simple concept. I really don't need to explain more than that, but there's a few details I will get into. But before I do, if you want to see more stuff like this, you can check out way more videos on my channel. I do a ton of stuff like this, especially with Pokemon, since I love it so much. So, again, if you want to see more, subscribe, like, notification bell, all that fun stuff. I'm not even going to bother explaining how that works either. Moving right along, Eevolutions. Now, currently we have 8 Eevolutions as of I'm writing and making this video. Starting off, we have Vaporeon, yes, that one, the Water type, Jolteon, Electric, Flareon for Fire, Espeon for Psychic, Umbreon for Dark, Leafeon for Grass, Glaceon for Ice, and Sylveon for Fairy. These 8 Pokemon can all be evolved from Eevee in various methods, some more annoying than others, looking at you, Umbreon and Espeon. And they all follow a very similar thing in terms of designs, as they all have a similar body with additional features that make them stand out and represent their types in some way, shape, or form. They also have one primary color that is that type's primary color. Each type has a color sorted with it. So I tried taking all of that into account when designing all the ones I was missing, as well as the puns that their names have. You know, Jolteon, Jolt, Eon. Eevolutions end with Eon, so it's a pun of, like, the first part, Jolts, like a jolt of electricity. Flare, as in a fire, you know, a flare of fire. ESP is a way to phrase something telekinetic. They're all puns, so I tried using that as well. And if you exclude the fact that Eevee also starts with E, Espeon has an E, but all the other Eevolutions, they don't have repeating first letters. So I also took that into account as well, but I do have a couple for each, because it's fun making dumb puns. That out of the way, I'm going to go in alphabetical order of the types, starting with Bug, ending with Water, even though Water already has one. And I'm just going to give you the Eevolutions I made, a bit of how I designed them, and I guess some fun facts about them. Starting off with everyone's favorite, the Bug type. Now, for this one, it was interesting to design. Unlike other people who have artists draw stuff or crudely draw things, I used the power of Photoshop and edit together the images of the creatures that you know and love, morphing them into new creatures via just like Frankensteining together with Photoshop. So using the Espeon's sitting position and Jolteon's head, I created a very sleek silhouette, nothing too crazy, nothing popping out or anything, because the focus I wanted was on the body itself. A lot of people, when you focus on insects, you think of maybe like pincers or some form of antenna, their wings. I want to focus on their body because a lot of them have interesting bodies that make people not want to touch them. That's a big point of contention with bugs. You don't want to touch them. So that's why I designed it all with like black dots everywhere, speckles, if you will. Because it's a bit unnerving. Well, why does it have that? Who knows? You can come up with the lore reason in the comments. It's more to invoke the idea of these bugs, these creatures that just look wrong when you look close at them. This one is speckly, on top of it having antenna like other bugs, wings like other bugs, and while some bugs have tails, its tail is curly just like certain versions of antenna. I also took the antenna and the tail from Beautyfly if you were curious. Besides that, the only other big thing was it's all lime green because that is the primary color of the bug type. And I wanted the eyes to really stand out. A lot of the Eevolutions have samey eyes, or just they complement the base color, or with the accent. So I wanted to focus on what a lot of bugs have. And in the real world, while a lot of bugs have tons of different color eyes, reds stand out. And it's typically done with like childish drawings of a red-eyed bug, like mosquitoes. So I decided to take that, and using how the art's designed, I colored both portions of the eye to create 2 separate eyes. Now for names, you could take a flea, call it Fleeon. Since it's a bug, it's also just an insect, Insecteon. Or the one I'm going with, as in a pest or pesticide, Pestion. I like Pestion, it sounds funny. Now, how would you evolve Pestion? Well, since Generation 5, they've gone back to starting at Route 1 and building up. All the other games before that kind of, it went to like Route like 100 something, like it was crazy. So what I did here was, if you're in one of the early routes between 1 and 9, so anything less than 10, if you level up your Eevee within those routes, you'll then get a Pestion. It's because early games have a lot of the early bug Pokemon. Most of the bug Pokemon are found typically early on. So I think it makes sense that for a dumb evolution gimmick, you gotta be in one of those routes. So now we can skip over the Dark type and we can go on to Dragon. This is probably the evolution I think people most want, only so it can complement Sylveon, since all of the evolutions come in some form of type triangle. So for this Dragon, I decided to focus on not just the primary color of the dragons in the games, but in the TCG, since in the trading cards, Dragon isn't represented with a blue, but more of this goldish yellow. So that's what I use as the accent to reference different parts of the franchise. They definitely wouldn't do this in the games, but I thought it was a neat point. Obviously, I use Vaporeon as the basis. The scales along it just work so well for the Dragon. And again, it's this more violet, darker blue color, because that is what a dragon is. The only big difference compared to Vaporeon is, for one, I gave little fangs. I think it's the cutest little thing because it's not menacing in the slightest, but man, is it trying. The other thing is I expanded the spikes. It goes up the head and even has its little fin is now replaced with just more spikes going up it. And its ears are from Dratini. Interesting shaped because dragons, especially in the Pokemon universe, are very interesting creatures to look at since they're not real to us. They're very fictional creatures, so when we design them, we definitely take a lot of interesting aspects, but there's some commonplace ones. And having interesting feather-like ears almost, they're so weird looking, but it works. The other thing is dragons always have wings in fiction, so this one has wings as well. These were taken from someone in the Flag Online. I don't remember. It's been a while since I designed some of these. For names, I like Dragion. Dragon itself, if you put an E in it, it just has the E on now, so Dragion I think is funny. This one isn't necessarily a dragon, but a Chimera typically relates to dragons. I know it's a bit of a stretch, but Chimerion I think sounds really cool. And the one I went with, based off a specific type of dragon, the Wyvern, Wyverion. Now, we can skip over the electric and fairy types, because we have those. We go on to fighting. Fighting is the most interesting, in my opinion, because it is the one type that I feel like Eevee would never get. As Eevee, of course, was based on the special types back in the day. It was meant to be all the Pokemon types that were primarily like magical. They used the special stats. They didn't focus on physical moves. The ones that did, or I guess do, are the types that don't have a evolution corresponding to it. Fighting is the go-to for the physical, and Psychic is go-to for like the special. So I think having a fighting type evolution was probably the hardest to think of, but one of my personal favorites I designed. The fighting type itself, it's colored with this more reddish brown, but you tend to find a lot of oranger Pokemon in fighting. The main thing to take away from this one is, for its face, I decided to give it like a little mark between. This is to invoke the idea of like a bandage, as in a lot of anime, it's a trope of a lot of the sporty characters, very physical ones, would have like a band-aid on their nose for whatever reason. So it's to invoke that. The ears have little chips in them to show it's kind of been in battle. Gives it a more fierce appearance, but so cute. And it has, well, it looks like a belt forming from it, and it has like little coattails now. This is a black belt. Fighting Pokemon tend to be based off of the idea of like martial arts. Black belt, it is literally a trainer class. That is how prominent it is in Pokemon. It makes complete sense. And for the tail, I didn't want it to have a tail at first, but all the other ones have one, so it felt weird to not. And this one, at least in my opinion, I think works really well, because a lot of longer hair people, if you see them like dress up for like a fighting based event or sporting event, they put their hair up in like a ponytail bun, whatever. I like this little tail, which was taken from Tinkatuff, funny enough, and it's like a little ponytail, and it works because, you know, ponytail, tail, it's the tail now. Like, it works. It's simple, but it's one of those little design details that I think really stands out the more you pay attention to it. Now, it'll evolve the same way Sirfetch'd does, If you have a Galarian Farfetch'd and hit 3 critical hits in a singular battle, it evolves into Surfetch'd. For names, fighting typically means tough, so we have Toughion. Then, if you're fighting, you're brawling, so Brawleon, or another, verb for it would be like a melee. Meleon. Brawl and Melee, where have I heard that before? And the one I decided to go with was Meleon. I liked all the E's, because it went related back to Eevee, which has 4 E's in its name. Now we can skip over the fire type and go on to flying. This is the first one of the bunch I actually designed, funny enough. This one is definitely the most interesting in my opinion, because flying, while it could relate to the element, it typically relates to the idea of flight or a bird. So I wanted to still focus on that in some aspect without trying to take away from the fact it is a magical creature. So I decided to focus on its ears for this one, as not only do all the evolutions kind of skip out on the ears, they're all designed uniquely, but they very much skip out on like what that means, besides Vaporeon using it for fins. So the wings are the ears, and a lot of flying creatures in just fiction tend to have some form of rainbow pattern. Heck, literally look at Ho-Oh in Pokemon. So I decided to also use that, so it has red, yellow, green on top of the cyanish light blue that a lot of flying types have, because it's a very much saturated blue, but like the cyan just pops more. So I used it. But yeah, the red, yellow, green relates back to Pokemon, of course, with its original game, so I think it's a fun touch. The other thing was its tail, or tails in this case. I decided to take inspiration from planes with this one, and the idea is how the back fin moves a little, like up and down motions to help steady the plane as it's flying by. So having its tail shaped in these weird fin-like patterns makes sense, because it would help with the giant ears flying, even though it probably could just flap. I also gave some fur around its neck. A lot of flying types are very like fluffy, of course, feathery, so this is one of those that I think definitely benefits from having the fur coating around it. And the eyes as well, I wanted them to pop, because if it's a Pokemon flying through the sky, while you're focusing on the wings, it needs to be able to see, of course. So having specialized eyes for flight, I just think also makes sense in this case. So that is my flying type evolution. It's definitely more majestic than I expected at first, but they tend to try that with a lot of the bird Pokemon, flying Pokemon, so it works. For this one, I want to use a stone that's not meant for evolution. There's the Float Stone, which is a held item, but it's called a stone. So I think it'd be funny if just next Pokemon game, they're like, yeah, Float Stone's also an evolution stone for this one Pokemon now. For names, there's different words that mean some version of flying, like soar. So we have Saurion, or Flutter, Flutterion. The one I went with was Hoveon, as in hover. It also sounds like Hoverneon from Yokai Watch, so I was very biased when I picked that one. After that, we have the Ghost type. This is my favorite one of the bunch that I made, and it's meant to become a triangle with Umbreon and Espeon. We'll get to that later. Well, Ghost type is colored with this, I guess, a muted violet. It's such a specific color. Most Ghost types are purple. While the type in-game is colorized with this, they're primarily purple. You can mix up poison and ghost types a lot. Even the TCG does. You know why? Because they're purple. I don't care what color that is. Ghost types are purple. I did use it as the accent color, but the primary color is this purple. The other thing was a lot of ghost types also followed the kind of wisp or spirit aesthetic, so I went with that as well, along the ears, its tail, and even its legs, all having kind of the wispiness, the spiritualness about it that just makes this one stand out a ton. I also have a bit of like, I guess, eyeshadow under it. I wanted something that kind of showed it seemed dead, but it wasn't. Bags under the eyes is kind of a sign of like someone's tired, exhausted, and it's very much associated with someone near death for some reason. So I thought it worked in this case. But again, it's also very cute, and it also works really well with Espeon and Umbreon. Again, why did I bring that up again? Well, this is because, unlike the others, I made a little bit of lore for this one. It's a full max friendship Evo at dusk. For those who don't know, when Lycanroc was introduced in Sun and Moon, it had a day and night form. Nothing too crazy. But then it got a dusk form. You have like a half-hour window in the middle of the day. And it is considered dusk. nothing too crazy, but you get a special form for Lycanroc. It feels weird that's the only Pokemon that actually uses... They literally made a new time of day coded into Pokemon specifically for that, because it literally just went day. It looked different, but it's still considered day, and then went to night. Now you have a specific period called dusk, just for this form, so I think it'd be neat if another Pokemon used it. And if you can't decide between being a Psychic type or a Dark type, what's between Psychic and Dark? Ghost. Fits perfectly. Like, Ghost beats Psychic. What beats Ghost? Dark. For names, again, as in a Spectre, you could have Spectreon. A Ghoul, as in Ghoulion. It sounds too much like Goon, so I axed that one. And then, as in Phantom or Phantasm, Fantasion. That one just sounded the most cool to me, so I kept it. We're going to skip over Grass and go over to the Ground type. This one, probably the least Eevee-like of the set. I don't know what about it is. It feels more like a ferret to me, or a ferret. Ferret's a Pokemon. It feels more like a ferret. My idea behind this one was, I'm going to say the evolution first for this one, just to explain a bit better. What if you just had an Eevee that liked playing in the ground and digging? What if you just had one that liked to dig? That's it! It levels up by if it levels up with dig, it becomes this Pokemon. That was the whole premise behind it. So, if it's digging so much, what benefits evolutionarily would it want? For one, front claws. If it's digging, obviously it would use like all of them, but it's, you know, it's like doggy paddling a whale or like kicking up dirt and sand. It has these now tougher front claws for digging. It also has these bright white eyes. It would be like X-ray, kind of thing like Espeon, almost, with the eyes. It's now able to see so much better in the dark. That's why they're so bright. Also, if it's going like head first, it doesn't want some big fluffy ears in the way. It wants to be a lean Pokemon so it can quickly go underground. So it has very small ears. A lot of ground types also have some form of like complement color, and it tends to be some form of like gray to go with like rocks or something. I figured I would go with black. It's more of a contrast, and a few ground types also have some form of black like outlining or lining their bodies. I just thought it looked nice. You could consider it some form of like soot or something from digging in various terrains, whatever the case. So I decided to give a black collar around its neck and its tail as well. It has a big puffy tail since it doesn't really matter. It's already going full like head first through it. If it's just all hair, it doesn't matter because it can just condense to get through little holes or something. So I just figured it'd be nice, big, and puffy. But yeah, that's the ground type, and I feel like this is the most in-universe, like, makes sense. For names, we have like Groudon, so I figured why not have Grounion? Ground means like land, Landion, and another word for it is Terra. Terrion. You can't tell me Terrion doesn't actually sound perfect. Now we're going to skip the ice type and go over to normal. So normal is interesting because Eevee's already normal, and the whole idea is evolves into other types. I doubt we'll ever actually get a normal evolution. I think that's always going to just be a fan thing, because even if we got all the other types, I feel like they'll exclude normal just because Eevee's already normal. But let's say it did exist. What exactly is special about it at that point? Well, if it's focusing on the normal type, I figured why not just do what a lot of other evolutions do and focus on what makes Eevee and just roll with it. For one, I inverted the colors. Eevee has this brown tan, so I figured I would just invert which colors are which, so now its accent color is Eevee's primary color. I also have the more leaner appearance of the Eevolutions. It still has its fur coat. It now has a lot of Eevolutions. I don't know why this was, but when I realized a lot of Eevolutions, specifically later on, had like their accent color on their feet as well as the rest of their body, unlike the older ones where it was just one color for their feet. So this one has the extra feet, and also has extra tails, because evolutions have extra limbs. That's my reasoning. The only thing I added was a horn. I figured it needed something special to show that it's an evolution, but I couldn't think of anything, and then I realized, well, what's normal? And a lot of creatures have, but tends to be depicted as magical. That's horns. A lot of animals have some form of horn attached to them, but In fiction, a horn typically is good luck, powerful, it's used in crafting or whatever, so I gave it an Eevee. This one isn't too complicated overall, and I do really like it. The eye itself is also just a bit rainbowish, kind of to represent that it's still that Eevee at heart. Now, how would you get this if it's normal? What exactly would be the evolution method? If you deny evolution 3 times, then evolve it, it'll become this one. And I don't mean give it 3 water stones denied each time. I mean, give it a fire stone, cancel Flareon. Give it a water stone, cancel Vaporeon. Give it a thunderstone, cancel Jolteon. Try for 3 other of the evolutions on the list, and if you cancel 3 of them properly, you would get this. What's it called? Well, I didn't want to make a pun of like, well, it's still an Eevee, so it could be Eeveon, but then it just felt dumber the more I read it out loud, so I scrapped that, and I just made puns based off the idea of being normal. Standard. Normalion, Stanzion. Then I realized if this is kind of the culmination of you denied evolutions, you know, like if this is a combination of the normal type, Eevee, of course, would just have so many moves in this form. It would be the ultimate Eevee. It would be Ultimeon. Yeah, that one's not that good, but like I kind of was running out of ideas at that point. Anyway, Poison. This one's simple. It's Eevee but sick. So I took a lot of those kind of sick character types in TV shows, like what would depict someone who is kind of like sick or like under the weather, and apply that to the Poison one. So the main focus here was droopy ears. None of the evolutions have droopy ears, so I figured this one would have droopy ears because it's sick. You can actually see I have the darker purple, and that's meant to be coursing through its body. You can see the toxins within it. This Eevee isn't sick, but it looks sick. That's the idea. It also has overgrown hair at the top, literally covering its eyes, because it's sick. He looks sick, but he ain't. And that's the fun part about this one. The only other noticeable thing here is its tail. I just made it a sharp needle, as Poison is typically depicted with some form of needle in the Pokemon universe. So I figured it makes sense if its way of actually injecting poison into others was through its tail. A sharp little needle. How would you evolve it? If you trade it while holding the Toxic Orb item, which is inflicting poison on the Pokemon, of course, you would then get either Toxeon, you know, as in toxic, Venomion, it's a bit of a mouthful, or Baneon. For those who don't know, the word Bane actually is another word for pollutant. Now we'll skip Psychic, and we're going to go over to Rock type. Well, a lot of people may confuse the Rock and Ground type. There is a bit of uniqueness in the Rock type, that being, it's a rock. That's it. It is just literally take all of the uniqueness of what makes a ground Pokemon, strip it down to Boulder. That's your Pokemon now. So, I had fun with it. Now, Rock is depicted with this weird, like, tannish color, so I rolled with it. But I decided to make Eevee look more like a lion and have a rock mane. Because you can't deny, that's awesome. A lion of rocks and its mane is made of rocks. You could just make that a new Pokemon and I'd be sold. So we have a rock Pokemon. It's Rock Eevolution. It has little freckles around it because I thought that was cute. And it has these big, like, ear eyebrows that are also shaped like rocks. They're not actually rocks in this case, but they're shaped like it. Its tail is also shaped like a rock, but it isn't. It's meant to just look like it. Again, not too complicated, very simple. I just kind of wanted to create that effect with the rocks, and I left it there. For those who don't realize, these are all just rock and rollers stripped of their life. Now, how would you evolve this Pokemon? If you level up while holding the Rockstone item, you'd get Boldeon, as in boulder, Mineon, as in mine or mineral, or the one I liked, Craggeon. A crag is a steep rock, so it's a bit more unique than just saying mine. And lastly, because obviously we're not doing water since Vaporeon exists, we have the Steel type. Steel is interesting for 2 reasons. One, it's primarily depicted with one color, if you look at like its element, and it's this like bluish gray. Mind you, I think only Bronzong uses that color. Every other one is like a silver. So there's your first point of contention. Steel type goes in one of 2 categories. It either represents kind of the mineral, it's like an iron-based Pokemon, or it's literally steel, gold, whatever, or steel as in armor, a knight. Those are kind of the 2 ways a steel Pokemon is defined. So I had to decide which one I actually wanted in this case, and while you think I would go for the mineral, then I feel like I'm leaning too much into the rock type or the ground type. So I focused on the armor because it felt more unique. There's an armored Eevolution. That is like the design idea behind it. It's primarily the blue color, and then it has armor bits. Its ears are folded over as like a armored like knight helmet. All of its legs have, they're just shield-ons, but armored bits around its legs and all that to protect itself. Even its little paws are armored. And it doesn't have a tail because you can't see it, but the back is armored. The idea is the Pokemon is just armored up and ready for battle. It has high defense, but it still uses stuff like Steel Beam to reference the Steel type's other attributes. Its moveset is based off one, its design is based off the other, half of what Steel type represents. There you go. How would you get this one? You trade it holding a Metal Coat, the Steel type equivalent of Level Up at this point. Now for names, I had Steon, as in just Steel, Quartzion, as in Quartz, or the one I went with, Armorion, Armor. And if you did your counting correctly, that is 18 out of 18 types with Eevolutions. I hope you all enjoyed this. I actually had a massive blast making this. It took about a week just to open up time to design all of these, but this is probably some of the most fun I've had in making a video in recent times. I do love photoshopping and making stuff for YouTube, of course, but I think this one really pushed just my creativity in ways that I'm not used to, and having so much to think about when designing it, because I'm trying to make Pokemon not based off of something, but something new with some design attributes. It's new for me in a way, so that was the most fun part, was the design process. And if there's anything interesting that you guys would like to see, you can always comment, but I'd love to hear your ideas for Eevolutions, maybe ways I could have improved designs or other takes of the types, colors, whatever the case. I'd love to hear about all of it in the comments. I'll even reply back if I can. With all that being said, I'm going to wrap it up there because this video definitely dragged on way too long. So, I'm going to wish you all a lovely day.